Financial Services, where money is made easy.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
one of the few areas I don't have that information in front of me, but it's proven to be a challenge, and they're working along with other radio stations, including WINNFM, to have that problem rectified. So yes, I have to apologize to see me on the road and ask the questions about being heard in certain areas on the island. So I must apologize for that. So as I said this morning, we will be discussing crime and violence, a systemic problem that we have on the island. So, we have with us this morning the leader of the People's Action Movement, Mrs. Natasha Gray Brooks, leader, and two national deputy leaders, Azad Gums and David Lincoln. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Yes. Okay, we're having some technical challenges there.
So
Let's start this over again. Yes, so let's try this again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so yes. So I will give you, each one of you, just about 2 minutes to. I'll start with the leader. I'll give her 3 minutes, just to give us a sense of the party's position when it comes to the issue of crime and violence that's impacting us here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Good morning, Jermaine, and good morning to those listening and those who are viewing on the social media platform. It is a pleasure to be here this morning as the People's Action Movement take crime fighting very seriously, and we think that it is an issue that is affecting our federation, and we are here to share our concerns, suggestions, and if necessary, hear from the people, because we think that there is a need for us to all come together and get this situation under control. As the leader of the People's Action Movement, let me take this opportunity on behalf of our party to extend heartfelt condolences to all those families who have suffered, who have lost a loved one through gun violence or some other form of homicide, because we know that you have been affected daily, and I'm quite certain every time our nation faces a next murder, you relive some of those situations, circumstances that you have experienced having lost a loved one. We also want to let the business community know, those who have been affected by robberies, that we stand in solidarity with you. Our Prime Minister is currently away on vacation. He's away from the people that he took an oath to serve. Meanwhile, we are here faced with the harsh realities that is presently facing our nation. Unfortunately, we have reached a sad state where our country has been so severely impacted by the murders where our women are now being killed. Our youths are being gunned down. In particular, minors. A 9-year-old was killed just last week in cold blood by a gun. And our leaders should approach our crime situation with a sense of urgency, a sense of compassion, a sense of seriousness. Persons are living in fear. Our communities are hurting. We are beyond exhausted by the hollow promises of change. Our people are in need of something tangible, something that they can see that is transforming our communities. I am uncomfortable because families are mourning. I want to sleep peacefully, knowing that another 9-year-old would not be gunned down. I want residents to approach their homes in safety, not looking over their shoulders as someone may be hiding out. Our leaders continue to fail us. It devastates me, and I am fearful that our young people are becoming mere memories, and the People's Action Movement does not want that.
Jermaine, as the political leader has indicated, we are at a crossroads within our time here within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. It's really a sad situation, as our political leader has indicated. The Prime Minister, who is also the Minister of National Security, at a time like this, where the number of homicides are on an all-time high, we recognize that for some period in time, the number of homicides declined. But right now we are experiencing an increase in the number of homicides. As our political leader has indicated in her opening remarks, we have a female being killed, we have a young boy being killed, and the time period in which these homicides occur, it's very alarming. In fact, over a couple of weeks, we've seen a number of deaths. And so at this point in time, we expected the leader of the country, the Prime Minister, and of course the Minister of National Security to be here. But as indicated, he is on leave and has left his deputy to do what he, as Minister of National Security, ought to do, and that is to lead the ministry and to arrest the situation at hand. Of course, we both stand here in solidarity. We stand here and we pray for our country, who at this point in time, our country is bleeding. Our country seems to be a ship without a captain. And so the People's Action Movement stands ready here to listen to the people and to come up with our own ideas and solutions. Of course, we don't have it all, and that's why we're here, and that's why we have consider doing listening tours to ensure that we listen to the people and bring those suggestions and ideas to the front.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Peace to all. My name is Lincoln David Pell. You had it a mix up. I just want to lend support to what our political leader would have mentioned and what my fellow deputy political leader would have mentioned as well, because it's very important. You know, I come from a law enforcement background, and one crime or one murder, let's put it this way, murder is one too many. I must then say what is happening here has been happening for a number of years. But I could say there was a period in history, in our history in St. Nevis, when this situation was not like this. And the People's Action Movement have some of the solutions for what is happening. Because under their stewardship so many years ago, those of us who are old enough and could remember would have understand we had a period when this type of incident and this type of crime was very low in our country. And we are here today to let the nation know we can bring back that same freedom of walking around and reduce murders and violent crimes in our country and even make it better. And some of the things we're going to say here today is to let people understand the People's Action Movement is just not talking because we want to talk and because we're in opposition and want to get in government. Yes, our focus is to get back in government, but it's to let the people know we are serious about what is happening in our country and we want to be a part of the solution. And that is why our political leader and the two deputies are here today to bring that message forward on behalf of the party. So I'm going to sit back now and let our political leader say what she has to say and lend my support behind her.
Okay, let's start on that note. You said there was a period of peace in St. Kitts and Nevis, but now we're seeing this upsurge. Let's say over the last 2 years, and we've been seeing just about 60 homicides, roughly. I think it's about 54, 55, somewhere there about. But the issue that we've been seeing here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and I like to go beyond the headlines, of just talking about a particular issue. We want to get a sense of why this is happening and how people are actually... Okay. Yes.
I didn't hear any.
Okay, so you hear me now? Okay, so my question to you guys is, I like to go beyond the headlines, and we're looking at a critical issue that's impacting us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to get a sense from what do you guys believe is the root cause of this problem? Because we've been talking about this problem for many years now, right? And when we look at the statistics, it's roughly within the last 5-6 years, more than 100 homicides occurring. What do you guys attribute to this particular issue?
Now, if you look at each individual murder, some of them may have a particular trend. You could say that it may have been as a result of gang violence or retaliation from some previous incident. Some may have been domestic related. I think one of the things that needs to be done is there needs to be a proper assessment of each individual homicide. There must be people assigned to this task to be able to carry out a careful assessment as to what may have caused this. Some of them, you may have the information because based on the police investigation, you may have gotten certain statements and so forth. But I don't think we are nipping it in the bud. And we are not carrying out the necessary assessment to see, is it as a result of cultural behaviors? Is it as a result of gang violence? Is it as a result of some form of anger management, retaliation? Somebody had something for somebody. We are not carrying out that assessment as a people. And so without finding out what the root cause is, you would have things spiraling out of control as they are now. And the administration now, they are a bit reactive. They need to be more proactive. They need to put things in place to avoid always trying to respond to a upsurge in crime. Now, when we look at the last 2 years of this administration, as you said, we're close to 60 homicides, and that's far too many. We had seen a reduction in homicides over the years. We had actually reached a peak in 2011 where we had 34 homicides. I think that was the highest in the nation's history, and I stand to be corrected. But you saw that dwindling down when first, in 2012, it was 18, then it stayed in the 20s mark, 21. Then in 2015, it went back up to 28. In 2016, it went up to 30. But then you saw a reduction. It came down to 23 in 2017, 23 again in 2018, down to 12 in 2019, 10 in 2020, 13 in 2021, and we had 11 in 2022, and last year we went back up in the 30s. So something happened in terms of trying to find out what was the root cause, because you saw that there was a decline, and then it just catapulted. I mean, from 11 to 31 between 2022 and 2023, that's an increase by 20. And so we know that there is this Elevate program. We wonder whether or not the program is something that is working, whether there are the right people associated with the program. I mean, Azad and I, and he could tell you, him and I, before I became the political leader, we spoke to a number of persons who are on the program. And they have not met with anyone. Persons are not consulting them. They don't know what's happening. They're not given the opportunity to give input. And they want change. They want their lives to be better. They want to be able to roam freely throughout the country. And if it is those who we have put in a position to lead us are not consulting with our youths, are not consulting with persons they have on a program, then who are they consulting with? Who are they speaking to? Who is advising them? And we think that there has to be some careful consideration in terms of how we deal with this thing, because no one has all the answers, and we need to hear from our people.
And Jermaine, as our political leader has indicated, these homicides, we don't think, and we're not saying that the government is causing these crimes to happen. We know that crime is a society problem, it's a societal problem, it's a community problem, it's a family problem. But what we are experiencing at this point in time seems to be a neglect from the administration to take the mantle and to ensure that there's some sort of guidance. The government, I always say, has the resources that are needed to conduct investigation, the resources that are needed to ensure that there is, border control. We look at the issue of guns. Guns aren't manufactured here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The guns have to come from somewhere. And so when we look at all of the possible reasons, we see that government has an overarching responsibility, because when we look at border control, the government has immigration, it has customs, and all of these land in the hands of a government official. And so when we look at the guns are manufactured here in St. Kitts, as I have indicated already, and I think it's an open secret that we don't make guns here. And so they had to come from somewhere. They had to reach our shores. And so we have to look at the persons in charge of ensuring that our borders are safe. That persons, when they are traveling to and from the country, that the proper mechanism is in place to detect unlicensed firearm and illegal ammunition. We need to be serious, and we need to put the resources where resources are necessary.
But as you mentioned that, and just before I think, Mr. Pell, I allow you to respond, and I'll throw this one to you as well. As you mentioned there that the issue is with the government, but what I found over time,
because I like to clarify, because hold on. I said that the issue is with the government. And I like to clarify, because these things are taped, they're recorded, and then they're carried out. So I like to say, I'm saying that crime is a societal problem. It stems from the community. It is but I'm saying that government has the necessary resources, more resources than any other body, to ensure that they lead on crime prevention and they lead on crime detection and investigation.
Yeah, but I was about to make the point, right? And you reference it again in terms of the government's approach to dealing with it, because what we would have found, and I, as the law enforcement rep on, with law enforcement background, and Mr. Pell, because the government, and this is something that we've been seen across the Caribbean region, and being all fairness, not just to the current administration, the previous administration, of which the People's Action Movement was a member, is that we're still throwing resources and millions of dollars annually behind the problem of dealing with crime and violence, but we didn't touch on necessarily finding what the root cause of the problem is. So from a law enforcement perspective, how do you deal with an issue like this, especially where we know that the border specifically is an issue? And I can speak for myself, because one time I came back to St. Kitts and I was actually searched. I was screened. I don't know why, but, I respect that. That's the laws, right? But how do we police the borders, knowing very well that, there's some level of discomfort and you're going to be feeling some complaints from people? And then we've been seeing what transpired in Turks and Caicos, where innocent people, to an extent, and I'm just using that word loosely, there can be some pushback when all of this happens.
Well, I wanted to leave this for later, but I think I'm going to use it now. This is the Police Act of 2009. And what it mentioned here, it's mentioned about who is a police officer and what the police force is stand for. The police force shall, for the purpose of administration, be divided into two divisions, okay? St. Kitts Division and the Nevis Division. But this is so we could know what the police role is. It goes on to say the police force, for the time being, serving in St. Kitts and Nevis, shall have, and the members shall have and enjoy all rights, powers, authority, privileges, and immunity conferred on a member of the police force under the Act, to enforce the laws. Therefore, the police cannot function unless they have laws. What the public now have to recognize, the police didn't just get up and start to do things like that. And whatever law is there is because the public in itself would have cried out, the parliamentarians themselves went into parliament and create a law. And therefore it is the police's duty bound to do that. Because in our situation, the police is still responsible for the defense of the country, which is external borders and internal affairs. Because, let me come back on the word, the legal term there, but the right of being a police officer, the police is the chief law enforcement officer. Whatever law comes into play, even there might be a military part of it, the police, because they are police and they're chief, they still have some kind of military role to play. And your question is right, and what Azad is saying is the government who finance the police and everything they do. And sometimes what a lot of people may not know, the police is like the commissioner of police. Let me put it this way. The office of commissioner of police is something like an advisor to the government in law enforcement. It's not everything the police requests they get. I know because I used to be inside there. So this is just to answer your question. And I'm going to leave it there because you have a question, and I know my political leader will want to jump in and say a few things as well.
Okay. At what point does... And this question is a little bit ticklish because, as you rightly said, the government is the chief in terms of financing. But at what point do we stop and say this is no longer a government responsibility, because we keep throwing resources, the government keep allocating resources to dealing with a problem, and it comes back to the word, quote unquote, a societal issue? Because what we've been finding, and this is a broad statement here, the issue of crime and violence, and the Prime Minister referenced this recently, that what they found is crime and violence, and I'm not just talking about homicides here, right? Homicides remain the focal point of the whole discussion. But we've been seeing robberies of supermarkets, more specifically the Asian-owned supermarkets. At what point do we as a society say crime and violence is our issue, not just the government's issue, where we have to take up the responsibility to ensure that society remains and St. Kitts and Nevis remains a safe place?
Jermaine, under the leadership of our previous leader, the Honorable Sean Richards, we wrote the People's Action Movement. We wrote to the government to have a seat at the table, because we recognize that this is not just about the government. We wrote, since I became the leader, I've made it public that I want to have a conversation, because I recognize that the crime is spiraling out of control. And the government does not have all the answers. Yes, they may have the resources. They may have the opportunity to put policies in place and so forth. But they need to hear from the communities. They need to hear from political parties. They need to hear from community leaders. They need to hear from the churches. They need to hear from the people. Because, as you said, we have spent millions and millions, have not identified what the root cause is, but we are not reaching out to the people. We are not going into the communities. We can't sit down in our office and fly on a plane and expect that the problem will be solved. We have to touch the people. We have to touch them where it matters. Because when a gunshot is echoing in a community, you have to go to the people. When somebody passes and see blood on the streets, how it affects them. How it affects them when someone is jobless. How does that impact their finances and their livelihood? I mean, I'm not sure. I yet to confirm. I've heard that 20 persons lost their jobs yesterday. How will that impact our society? How will that have an impact on crime? Because I'm not saying that because you don't have a job, you should go out and rob a supermarket or you should go out and kill someone. But you don't put persons in a situation where they feel helpless. And I think that is one of the problems. We are not providing necessary opportunity for persons in terms of jobs. Poverty, yes, we say that, certain parts of the country we have developed and so forth, but there are people who are suffering daily. Mothers don't know where their next meal is coming from. Children are forced to go out and fend for themselves and associate themselves with characters that they may not want to associate themselves with. And so we have to look at all these things. We have to look at the fact that we are a society. We have different persons from different nationalities. And so we don't know, have we carried out an assessment to see what impact we have had on those persons' lives and what impact they have had on ours? We need to make sure that we are involved with our people, in touch. Don't bring in any big technocrats and any big advisors to say this when you're not speaking to the people. That is one of the problems. They are not touching base with the people. And so if you're not hearing from the people, you just assume things and you're assuming the worst, and it affects our country.
And of course, Jermaine, we do believe that, the community, the leaders within the community can put together and can assist. But I always said that this assistance must go hand in hand with those elected to lead. It must come from the top. It must come, and when I say come from the top, let me be very clear. If there's something that someone wants to do in the community to deter persons from going into a life of crime, that is good on its own. But if that person is given the support by government to ensure that idea is given support and financing and resources in manpower, that can go a much longer way. And so that is what we're saying here. We're saying here that we have elected a leader, the country elected a leader, and we're expecting our leaders in conjunction with those within the community, those elected leaders, to lead within the communities that they have been elected to serve. Every member of parliament comes from a constituency. Each constituency is made up of a village. We have members of parliaments that represent persons within their constituency and by extension their communities. These representatives, in addition to community leaders, could come together, but I believe that it is more beneficial when the representatives say, we are meeting today to discuss the issue of crime and violence in this community. We are inviting the church, we're inviting the political parties, we're inviting everybody to be here. I think that goes a long way. And this is what I think is not happening.
Has the People's Action Movement received an invitation to participate in a national consultation?
By the airwaves, yes. And I have already said that when it has a crime symposium, I think it was a crime symposium that by the airwaves, it was said that, we extend to all political parties. I've made my criticism known as it relates to a symposium, and thinking that a symposium alone could bring some solution. Why? Because you have so many groups there, so much, a short amount of time that all the ideas can't be captured and implemented. I have suggested, focus groups where you meet, as our political leader has said before, the People's Action Movement in January. January wrote a letter. January, we are now in August. It's the 8th month. We said that last year, that year being 2023, we saw that there were 31 homicides. And at that point in January, we said, enough is enough. We want a seat at the table so we can discuss and so we can have government's resources and support to implement certain activities, to see what the government is doing, to give our own opinions and what we think could be some solutions. Of course, again, and I think persons miss the point that government hold a lot of resources. Government has at their disposal ministries responsible with immigration. They have at their disposal the police force. They have at their disposal the resources of the state. And the state resources must be directed in a way that assists the people of the state.
I must say as well, everything that you said is on point. Also, over the many years, since when I was in the police force and since I would have left, you always hear the police mentioned. It is a community effort. Crime fighting is everyone's business. And that is why back then, there are certain things were put in place. Police were used to play football, volleyball, netball, cricket, all the sports you could think about. But then you know what changed? And we as a society have to wake up and see what we would have done. Some persons over the years believe the police were too friendly and therefore the police should remove itself from society. Now we are crying for that. Just like how in the US recently they were talking about defund the police. We had something similar to this back, I think it was in the late 90s, early 2000s coming up. People were just saying the police are too friendly. And therefore you have a problem. Whereas some older persons will tell you they could be caught playing dominoes with the police, going into the police stations and doing that. Police used to visit to the schools, say many things, whether it's about traffic, how to cross the roads and everything, but to stay away from the life of crime. How often are we hearing that now? People are more saying, we against them. Also, back again, I'm sure maybe you could remember it, as we say, we call it all society, the church. A lot of young persons, all of us here, used to go to church, but today in our society, people don't want to hear anything about Jesus Christ. And I'm pointing out that it's all areas we have to look at. And it is the government responsibility, it is the police responsibility, and we here from the People's Action Movement are looking to be in the government the next election. So we are here now talking because when we reach in there, we want to use every facet of society. And I just want to stay there and let the political leader come to them because I want to realize we have made some mistakes in the past. And the seeds have now germinated and they're now coming to seedlings and now into plants. How are we going to get that solved? We have to look at what didn't happen in the past and what happened in the past for why we are here today. But all I could tell you, we're here now, the People's Action Movement, we have some of the answers and we are sharing. And as was mentioned, many times we were asked to let us give an input. But, as you heard from our political leader and from Deputy Azad, we were not given that opportunity. And that is why we are here today, to share and to let society see. We now have to wake up and see what is happening in front of us where we have now women and children are being
murdered.
Okay.
Jeremy, before you go on, I want to say something because the political leader had mentioned it before. The political leader myself attended a meeting whereby persons who were on the peace, maybe still on the peace, persons who have been a part of, the gang system. It was actually a meeting that was brought together by Nubian,
Well, as sorry for cutting you. I actually wanted to raise that topic after the break because I have to go acknowledge.
Okay.
You
Problem.
You know how it goes, and then when we come back,
Yes.
we'll continue with the discussions.
Yes.
So yes, you hear on WINNFM 98.9 Inside the News. We're going to pay some bills, and then when we come back, we'll continue with the discussions, and then we'll take a couple of phone calls because I see you guys are really, really into the program because the phone lines are going off, and then we'll come right back and continue with more Inside the News.
Found the sound 98.9 WINNMedia
People make the world.
If you need insurance, our service is the best. Home motor insurance can give you more for less. Property insurance can save you a lot of stress. At TDC Insurance Company Limited, we care about your investment. Guarantee you peace of mind. The best team in the business. Guarantee you peace of mind. No other company will guarantee you peace of mind. Together we'll succeed and guarantee you peace of mind. TDC Insurance Company Limited, where you get more coverage for less.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
And we are back here on Inside the News. I am Jeremy Abel sitting in today, and we're taking a look at the problem of crime and violence here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So just for context for the listeners out there, last year, based on the statistics kept by the media, there were about 31 homicides in St. Kitts and Nevis. Again, based on statistics kept by the media, there is roughly about 22 homicides this year. So I just want to put that perspective out there so people can understand the level of this discourse that we're having this morning. Then again, what's more alarming is the fact that we had a female killed. The people who are being arrested for this crime and violence, they are becoming younger and younger. And then most recently, we had a 9-year-old who was one of the double homicide victims here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So you can understand the issues that we are facing here. And then outside of that, we keep hearing and seeing a number of robberies of supermarkets, especially Asian-owned supermarkets. People might say, why am I singling out those? But the reality is those are the ones that are being targeted right now, at least for the last 4 or 5 that came across the news desk here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Those were the ones being targeted. Before you left, you were about to reference the peace program that we all in St. Kitts and Nevis have been talking about since it was introduced back in 2020, 2021, they're about to deal with the criminal activities here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Perhaps a little before, maybe like 2019, I think, around that.
Well, again, we all still don't have official statistics data to speak about when it was roughly introduced.
I've done some interviews with persons who are part of the program, both in the administrative aspect of it and both persons who would have been on the receiving of compensation in terms of the gang members. As I said before, the political leader, Natasha Gray, and myself attended a meeting that was organized by Mr. Nubian Griot a couple months ago, I think just before we assumed office, maybe about in May, because he realized what was going on. And we spoke with a number of persons who are on the piece, whether they are now still on or but was on the piece before. And a lot of what they said is that the persons who were a part of the program, because the program was not perfect, I cannot say that the program was perfect. Of course, we realized that there was some political influence that affected the efficiency of the program. I'm not saying that it was a perfect program, I'm not saying, but at the time it yielded some results. And so we sat down, we had a room full of those individuals. We had police officers outside, and that's why I say the resources of the state. And so in case there was any backlash, so to speak, there was police there. You understand? And so based on the conversation, you could see that it is a situation whereby they themselves are fearful, they themselves are hurting, meaning persons who will have been a part of the program. And they said that when the program came up, and again, we've heard persons talk about it before, and this is consistent, that it was them who really said that we need to get rid of this sort of hostility, persons wanting to venture across the country and not be confined to a particular location of the country. And of course, what was said to them, to us, is that the persons who were a part of the framework and getting everything involved and everything gelling, those persons were removed. In fact, I spoke to somebody who was at the administrative level of the program who said that they was just sent home. And they weren't even asked about what were some of the plus, some of the minuses. We've heard the now Prime Minister, during his campaign, said that in his own, at a town, not a town hall, a political meeting, saying that he's not going to stop the peace. You understand? And then we hear rhetoric of the sort that he is saying that, oh, the peace was used to purchase ammunition and guns, and this is what is the result of it now. But yet, when you do the investigation, the peace program has transformed into Elevate, and they're still paying of money. So the person who listens from outside is confused, because on the political rally during 2020, for when the Labour Party wanted to get in office, they said they're not going to stop the peace. I have a clip even here with him saying he's not going to stop the peace. Then you hear months after being elected, the peace was bad and that they use monies to buy guns. Yet, we still hear that the peace has been transformed to Elevate and there's monies being paid still. So, I am confused. I'm sure you are confused as well.
Well, I understand what you're saying, right? But I want to push back on one thing that you said there. Well, not necessarily push back, but to take it from a different perspective. Mm-hmm. I understand both sides of the argument that, you know, these guys allegedly, quote unquote, use the peace money to buy ammunition, which I understand that argument, right? And I also understand the argument or the school of thought that it assisted people, right? But when we put the two together, the question for me and concern has always been, and we're hearing this from international agencies, that the citizenship by investment program, quote unquote, again, where we're being told that a lot of these programs are being sponsored, right? Especially the fact that social programs are costing us roughly about $200 million annually, right? That at some point in time we had to stop it, right? That's the school of thought out there. That
we had to stop what?
Well, not really stop, but we have to make cuts in terms of the level of revenues that are being used to fund some social programs. And I think cut was not the correct term to use, but in a sense that it's not sustainable for us to continue to fund programs costing us to the tune of 250 million or thereabout, right? My question is, to the People's Action Movement, let's say the People's Action Movement do get into office at the next elections. How are you planning to tackle this in light of the fact that we have all of these challenges with this argument that funds are being used under quote-unquote the peace program, or was being used allegedly to purchase firearms, ammunition, one, and two, also balancing this with the fact that we have people who are in need of these social programs.
Okay, before we even go into I just want to say this, Jermaine, that we have the Prime Minister who indicated that he's not going to stop the peace program. Then we had, during his political meetings in 2022, then we had the allegation of these monies being used to purchase guns, but at the same time, we have confirmation from even government sources that the peace program is still running. So there's a contradiction there, because you're saying that the money was used to purchase guns, but yet you still have a program giving out money. So something is very confusing there in and of itself. As I said before, and this is what I try to do, and of course, if we are in office, we have to listen to persons who are there before us. And that is why I said, when it comes to the peace program, I'm not saying that it's a perfect program. I'm not saying that there can't be a better program. You understand? I'm saying that at the time, it seemed to yield some result. And I said that during the time when this administration came in, it's like all the key players who were a part of the program were immediately released and you just start afresh. And I'm saying at least one approach I would hope that we as a People's Action Movement does is, if there are programs started by the Labour Party, we speak to persons who are involved in the program, see where it's at, see how it could be improved, rather than just simply dismissing individuals because we feel that they supported a particular party. They didn't, and just because they supported a particular party or was governing a certain aspect or department under a particular political party, that they should be removed without questions or consultations.
No, Jermaine, just to add on what Azad said, the issue is this administration did not like the peace program. So they changed the name. Yes, as Azad indicated, there may have been things that may not have been perfect about it. But carry out an assessment, speak to the persons directly affected, those who were involved in it, those who managed it, to see what were the successes. Find out who are the true beneficiaries, and ensure that they are given an opportunity to change their lives and make a better impact on society. I sat down and heard these guys say, and a hungry man is an angry man. And when you hear something like that, you recognize that there is a shift. What may have been going in a particular direction, it's now shifting because these people were not consulted. Coming up to that meeting that we had, Labor Day was coming up. And I asked one of them, so you're attending the Elevate event that they're having on the Pasha? They knew nothing about it. So here we have the government using state resources to bring a number of artists, nothing wrong with giving artists job, on the back of persons they say are on the peace, but didn't tell them about this event, the program, that the event which is supposed to help them and try to move them from a life of crime. I think something is severely wrong, and because this government is in a position where they don't have the monopoly on ideas, they are running out of ideas, and they have a problem implementing things, they need to hear from other people.
Okay, in that sense, what do you think is the bottom line issue that the government should be targeting?
You want me to tell you what I think the problem is with the government? They do not listen. They do not consult. They do not listen, consult, or care.
Because I wouldn't say, well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that they don't care. You can say that they probably don't listen, but I wouldn't say that they don't care, because the issue of crime and violence, and the Prime Minister has spoken about it time and time again on air, right? Whether or not it be programs or he came and he did a national address recently. But the fact that you guys are saying that there's lack of consultations with those quote unquote people who were on the peace program underscores that there's some breakdown in communication there.
I mean, and communication is key, Jermaine, because if you're going to try to put certain things in place, but you don't know what the problem is, or you may have heard what the problem is, but you didn't follow up, how do you think you will solve it when you're just assuming? And so, yes, some of these social safety programs, they help people, they help persons who are having financial hardship, and we have that is one of the purposes of government. Government are supposed to be there to help and uplift persons. We are not saying that there must be a dependency syndrome on government, but government should be able to alleviate some of the problems that our people are facing, and that is why crime at some point has to come at their doorstep. It has to, because they have the resources. They may not have all the answers. They have the resources. They can put laws into place. They can put policies into place. But they must consult. They must have a little time and empathy to find out what went wrong.
And
When can I see you not rush persons out of their office or don't answer their phones? And I know there are going to be critics who are going to say Pam just speaking politics, but it is in reality. We have a prime minister who left the federation and said that he's going on leave. Yes, he's entitled to leave, but our country is in a crisis.
And Jermaine, you said that you won't use the term care, that they do not care, but I stand by what I said. And the reasons why I stand by there, if we were to look at the definition of care and we use it as a verb, it says to feel concern or interest, attach importance to something. Based on the government's action, I do not believe that they have attached any importance to the crime situation. As we have said before, we have a number of persons who have lost their lives due to gang violence. We sat in meetings, we hear that there's no consultation. As the political leader has just indicated, the Minister of National Security, the Prime Minister of the Federation, we had so many homicides in such a short time, personal leave. So I stand by what I said. And I'm not the only one who says this. When communicating with many persons, a lot of persons are saying that the government, the administration does not care.
But as I understand that you have strong opinions on that. But the reason why I would not go as far as saying that the Prime Minister or the government do not care about what is happening is they've been showing, and especially the Prime Minister, who is the Minister of National Security, he's been speaking about these particular issues. He's taken this particular issue up to the CARICOM level. They've been discussing this issue. He's taking it to the point where he's saying that, hey, it is a matter of public health concern. Right, he's raised this issue time and time again when he's traveled to probably the U.S. or wherever it is. Right, and I understand that it's being felt deeply, but I would not go as far as say he does not care. Right, and this is not me speaking from any political perspective or anything. Right, I would just say that based on the actions that I would have seen, I wouldn't go so far as to say that. But what I want to get from you guys, because we'll break in a little bit for the news, is if you. And let me go to Mr. Pell first. Legislatively, what do you think that we can do as a society in St. Kitts and Nevis? What can the government do in order to deal with this issue of crime and violence legislatively?
Now, we have enough legislation. We do not really want to turn into, let's say, everything is just legislation, but we have enough legislation. What's important is to let the police do its job. Because, like I said, the police is the chief law enforcement officer. Over the past, let's say 2 years now, because we have the new government here, they would have passed so many laws in relation to this. But the thing is, like I mentioned before, the Commissioner of Police, that office is a very powerful office. And it must be seen and must be felt and some respect must be given to it. And if the Commissioner of Police is requesting or suggesting something, he should be listened to. Yes, I know we have a national security advisor, but also the Commissioner of Police is an advisor to the government in law enforcement. The police have their various tactics, that they will use to achieve the policy of the government. And therefore, I believe, because I used to be in the police, like I said before, and sometimes it's not every time the police request or suggest something that they are being listened to. And sometimes, yes, because the government is the person in charge for paying, sometimes they overlook the police action and might want to bring their own thing in. But I'm going to say this now. It doesn't matter what policy that we use, unless it is not a law or it is constitutionally bound, and plus there are some laws that could be considered to be unconstitutional. So that is why I say we have to be careful. We have the laws already. It is just to respect the function and the duty of the police. And I mentioned what the Act says, that's what they're charged with. They're charged for, to do that. So let's give them the opportunity to protect us. All we have to do as a nation, of a community, is report crimes when we see it. And also, we have citizens according to the Constitution. And common law, I mean, we have two lawyers here. Common law mention that persons themselves has that civic duty to arrest persons if they can. If they see people committing crime, you don't have to call it. Yes, you arrest the person and take the person as soon as possible to the police. And therefore, I would just like to say...
On that note,
yes,
right, there's some concern. And for me, the concern again, and this is an open secret, that even if somebody wants to do a citizen's arrest, quote unquote, which is what you're saying, is the fact that there's going to be some level of retaliation. How do we get society to protect those people? I know there's been some concern way back, and the Attorney General also passed some legislation surrounding whistleblower, but that does not necessarily protect these people, right? How do we as a society begin the discussion to protect those eyewitnesses per se?
Okay. Also in law enforcement, there's a saying, the fear of crime is more than the reality of crime. And you know what? If society is afraid to give information and to even take those steps, easily they become victim of something they could have get control of. That's why I say, if you can, you arrest the person. Okay? Also, if we look at the definition for terrorism, there are some different countries and so on have the definition for terrorism differently. But if that's what you're saying, that we're going to be living in a terrorized state, and that itself is terrorism because you fear for everything. And as a citizen, a country, we should let a small group of people put us in that situation. And that is why it is very important to take part in law enforcement. If you're afraid to arrest, anonymously, give information. Yes, I know some people say the police this. I used to be a police officer as well, and I just want to encourage the police as well. Try not to be so begging for the name of the person or the identity of the person. What's important is what the person is reporting. And if we follow, okay, a person may not know the judge's rule. If you follow judge's rule, you do not have to know who actually saying what at the time. It's only when you reach court. So if we do that, maybe we might remove some of the fear. And you know something as well, my friend, and to the entire nation, sometimes is the citizens themselves put us in this situation. I'm not going to be an informer. I'm not going to inform on this, but what happened? When you do that, the persons who are committed to do wrong get emboldened and continue to do it. The police cannot be here, there, and everywhere. Just like the legislatures or the government, they're not out on the street, let me put it that way. Because when we reach into government, the next election, and our political leader, the Prime Minister, we would want to make sure our citizens themselves empower themselves. Because having an empowered citizenry in a country, economic boom. Because when we see Tom Jones doing something like, hey, Tom Jones, that is wrong. Because as simple as we put it, law enforcement or crime fighting can affect us in so many different ways. Economically, even if you want to see it from tourism point of view, it can affect us in that way. And this is what we're afraid happening. And just as you mentioned before, my friend, that we have certain business community being affected by these things, remember, we can look at them as, let's say, foreign direct investment, and therefore it can affect us. And that is why our society should open our eyes and recognize what is happening. We have to take our country back. The police is the chief in doing that. The parliamentarians is the legislators for that. But the community is there to help, to enforce that, to bring that about.
Okay, I have a question, and it surrounds mental health and the fact, and Mr. Pell, you touched on it a little bit there in terms of the community. What we found is that a lot of the young people in St. Kitts and Nevis, and I referenced this earlier, the people who have been perpetrating these crimes allegedly are becoming younger and younger. A lot of them fall down the rabbit hole, but the concern is, and this is a very blunt question, right? Because it was asked of me the other day, and it really opened an eye. We're tackling the problem. We're throwing resources behind crime and violence. Let me back up. We're throwing resources to deal with the problem of crime and violence, but what we're doing is we're not necessarily getting to the grassroots. So my question is, we have people, a lot of young people who are in the rabbit hole, and when they do come, they try to come out of the rabbit hole, it's oftentimes too late. What do you guys expect, or what time frame do you expect to see this particular issue of crime and violence addressed, in light of the fact that we throw more resources behind dealing with crime and violence, and the question is being asked on social media, what are the resources? Let's be frank. Even if we budget $1 billion to deal with crime and violence, and we budget $2 billion to dealing with social programs, they all come back to fighting crime and violence, right? My question is, do we expect short-term results, or do we look for long-term results in dealing with crime and violence? Because let's be frank, you have a lot of people who are already in the system who are wanting to get out, but it's oftentimes difficult for them to get out of quote unquote this gang life. So do you expect to see short-term results or long-term results based on this whole discussion surrounding crime and violence?
I think both, because we have to try to ensure that those who are coming up, we put programs in place in our schools to ensure that this doesn't come into a different generation, so that 20 years down the line, we are seeing the new quote-unquote criminals. We have to do short and long term. And the long term, we will look at, because as you said, I think because we are not looking at the root cause, the billions that are being put into to try and fight crime, you find that, okay, we get more vehicles, we put up some CCTV cameras, some of them are not even being maintained, some are not being monitored, but you are not looking at, well, why did Tom kill Jane? And how can I help Tom? How can I help Jane? What about the programs in the prison for when Tom is in prison? What about Jane's family? How can I help them grieve so that when Tom comes out, if he does, they do not kill him as well, and then we have another murder on our hands? We need to put certain things in place. And because the government, and again, it has to come back to them, this administration is not being as clinical as they ought to, we are back where we started. We are back where we started. And you spoke about the laws. If laws are not being enforced, if you put 20 laws on the books and they're not being enforced, what is the purpose? Laws may act, legislation may act as a deterrent, but does it get to the root cause? Does it does it give you the answers as to why Tom killed Jane? And we don't understand that what persons are going through. Is there enough legislation as it stands right now to secure our borders? I mean, if I want to go to Nevis right now, who is going to stop me at Reggae Beach? Who is going to screen me at Reggae Beach? Because I know that I'm going up there to kill Tom. Who's going to stop me? Where are the metal detectors? Where are the things that can help try to curb certain criminal activity? You said that there's a target on the Asian, whether it is intended or not, but that is how it's perceived. Have anyone sat with these persons, these businesses, to find out what are the security concerns they have in the communities? What may be a concern in Old Road may not necessarily be a concern in McKnight. How long have these businesses been in that community? Have they developed a connection with the persons in the community? Are there solutions that we can do to help these persons? Are there cultural differences between Kittitians and divisions, or the persons in society and the Asian community? Has anyone even looked at that? How are we going to help to stop these things if we are not having the conversations? And back to what Azad said, consultation. It is key. Communication is key. It might not resolve everything, but it will help us a whole lot.
And so I will adjust and say, I do not think that they care enough.
Okay, I'll have to leave it there for now. We have to go for the news. The news was a bit out, but I will continue this discussion if you guys have to spare another 10 minutes after the news, and we'll continue with this. But we have to break for the midday news now. So yes, you are listening to the first half of Inside the News here on WINFM. The news was a bit late, so I kind of went over time there, but nevertheless, it's time for the midday news. Kevin Brown is on the news desk today, and I know he put together a masterful piece. So we'll go to that right now.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, and Caribbean.
When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and of course your insurance provider, only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Delisle Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
With the WINFM Midday News, I am Kevon Brown. Our top stories.
Drusan Henry charged with attempted murder. Police request public assistance in locating Kyron Phillip. UNESCO supports St. Kitts Nevis in advancing sustainable development goals. Public assistance requested in murder investigation. Guyana's government and opposition clash over additional $4 billion Guyana dollars for Guyana Sugar Corporation. Ministry of Health unveils pandemic management advancements in St. Lucia after stakeholder consultation. Internationally, Israeli airstrike on school. Over 100 Palestinians killed during morning prayers.
Now the details.
On August 9, 2024, Drusan Henry of New Road was formally arrested and charged by the Violent Crime Unit of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force with the attempted murder of Manfredo France. The charge stems from an incident on June 21, 2024 on Nevis Street in Basseterre. According to the police, the incident took place late in the evening, and following the investigation, Henry was taken into custody and remains detained. Anyone with additional information related to the incident is asked to come forward. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has requested public assistance in locating Chiron Phillip, a 29-year-old man wanted in connection with a murder investigation. A warrant for Phillip's arrest was issued on August 9, 2024. Phillip's last known residence is the John England Project in St. Peter's, St. Kitts. He is 6 feet 5 inches tall with a dark complexion, brown eyes, and black hair. The police advise anyone with information about Phillip's whereabouts to contact law enforcement, either through the Violent Crimes Unit at 662-3468 or the Crime Stoppers Hotline at 707. Individuals providing helpful information may be eligible for a reward. St. Kitts and Nevis has secured support from UNESCO through 3 grants aimed at enhancing initiatives in education, biodiversity, and gender policy, which align with the nation's pursuit of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. The St. Kitts and Nevis National Commission for UNESCO announced that the Federation will receive approximately US $60,000 under UNESCO's participation program. The funds are allocated to complete the National Accreditation of Qualifications Scheme, implement the National Gender Policy Framework, and develop a plan to transform the St. Mary's Biosphere Reserve into a plastic-free zone. A portion of the funding will be used to strengthen education within the Federation, particularly in professionalizing the teaching workforce, integrating Education for Sustainable Development, ESD, into the curriculum, and enhancing the National Accreditation Framework. Dorothy Warner, Secretary General of the National Commission, said the funding is intended to improve teaching standards, incorporate sustainable development into education, and ensure the accreditation system meets international criteria. The UNESCO-appointed experts to facilitate the completion of the National Accreditation Framework are expected to return to St. Kitts and Nevis early next year. Their work will involve establishing a system for reviewing and approving post-secondary qualifications, ensuring that educational outcomes align with the Federation's labor market needs. The grants will also assist in implementing the National Gender Policy Framework, which promotes gender equality. Additionally, UNESCO's funding will contribute to developing a strategy for transforming the St. Mary's Biosphere Reserve into a plastic-free zone, reflecting the Federation's focus on environmental sustainability. The Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, the Minister responsible for UNESCO, said the support will aid St. Kitts and Nevis's initiatives in education, gender equality, and environmental protection. These new grants complement ongoing projects between St. Kitts and Nevis and UNESCO, including the National Intangible Cultural Heritage Campaign, which aims to preserve local customs and traditions, nearing the completion of the first phase. The National ICH Framework is expected to be presented to the Cabinet by the end of 2024. Water Data Gathering Initiative. This project is focused on collecting data for technical and policy analysis to guide decision-making related to water use. Biodiversity and sustainable agriculture. There are preparations underway to develop a framework for raising funds to scale up St. Mary's Biosphere Reserve investments focusing on sustainable agriculture, including greenhouse cultivation. And the anti-doping compliance in sports. The National Sports Council is progressing towards full compliance with the anti-doping in sports standards, currently at 73.8%. His Excellency David Doyle, the Federation's ambassador to UNESCO, noted the importance of ongoing collaboration between the Federation's ministries, the St. Kitts Nevis National Commission, and its permanent delegation to UNESCO. As St. Kitts and Nevis continues to work towards its sustainable development goals, its partnership with UNESCO remains critical in advancing these efforts. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force is seeking assistance from the public to locate Philip Jones, who is considered a person of interest in an ongoing murder investigation. Philip Jones, 41, is described as 6 feet tall with black hair and brown eyes. His last known address is Carty's Pasture Tabernacle. The police believe he may have information relevant to the investigation. Anyone with information on Jones's whereabouts is asked to contact the Violent Crime Unit at 662-3468, the Crime Stoppers Hotline at 707, or any local police station.
In regional news,
Guyana's government and opposition clash over additional $4 billion Guyana dollars for Guyana Sugar Corporation. Guyana News Source reports.
Tensions flared in the National Assembly as the House considered an additional $4 billion for the cash-strapped Guyana Sugar Corporation, GuySuCo. 6 months ago, GuySuCo was allocated $6 billion in the 2024 budget. The government moved to the Assembly for the additional $4 billion in supplementary funding. Opposition members of Parliament Kemraj Ramjatan, Annette Ferguson and Vince Roy Jordan grilled the Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa on the operations of GuySuCo, which continue to cost taxpayers billions of dollars. The Agriculture Minister explained that the cost of production is higher than the earnings of GuySuCo because the industry is now getting back on track. Jordan quizzed the minister as to the feasibility of investing $40 billion in GuySuCo in 4 years and losing more than $20 billion so far with no returns.
We had to spend $11 billion to reopen Rosal Estate. And who caused us that? The APNUAFC closed down the estate, leave it to rot. So $11 billion immediately we lost there. Then Skelden, and more, we still got the Shutter Estate. We have workers there, almost 500 workers who are doing DNI work. We have to continue to give them wages and salary.
Minister Mustafa also told the Assembly that back in 2021, GuySuCo's losses amounted to $7.8 billion. And in 2022, the company lost over $10 billion. Separately, the National Assembly heard that GuySuCo's annual wage bill is a staggering $12 billion, which represents 76% of the company's operational costs annually. The Agriculture Minister said while the government is putting systems in place, there are some issues outside of the government's control that continue to plague the sugar industry. He explained that the shortfall in the first crop was due to weather conditions. Opposition Member of Parliament Kemraj Ramjatan inquired from the minister whether there could be a possible sugar shortage in wake of the drop in production.
There is no shortage of sugar, Mr. Speaker, and there will be no shortage at the end of the year.
The opposition said it was dissatisfied with the answers and responses from the minister, and it intends to raise a number of other questions related to GuySuCo to the National Assembly.
Ministry of Health unveils pandemic management advancements in St. Lucia after stakeholder consultation. DBS St. Lucia has that report.
From August 5th to the 7th, 2024, CAFA convened the first regional stakeholder consultation workshop on the Pandemic Fund project, reducing the public health impact of pandemics in the Caribbean through prevention, preparedness, and response in Trinidad and Tobago. The workshop provided an opportunity for CAFA member states to gain a better understanding of the project and how it fits into CAFA's overall work of improving regional health security. The St. Lucian delegation comprised of the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, Laboratory Director, Dr. Wayne Felicier, and Medical Surveillance Officer, Dr. Dana Gomez. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George highlighted the significance of the Pandemic Fund, describing it as the first financing mechanism specifically designed to provide grants aimed at enhancing the preparedness of low and middle-income countries for future pandemics.
The Pandemic Fund's first call for proposals provides additional financing to strengthen pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response capabilities and to address critical gaps in countries through investments and technical support. It is expected to support and reinforce the capacity building and implementation and other frameworks consistent with the One Health approach. CAFA's regional entity proposal was successfully selected in July of 2023, with CAFA as the executing agency and the Inter-American Development Bank as the implementing entity. So based with this regional project and CAFA as the beneficiary, the member states, which St. Lucia is a member of, will serve to support CAFA in reducing the public health impacts of pandemics in the Caribbean region.
The Chief Medical Officer also emphasized the critical importance of regional coordination and data sharing, key components under the Pandemic Fund. Reflecting on recent experiences managing the COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Belmar-George noted that effective coordination and collaboration among various agencies were essential for the successful handling of public health crises.
In terms of data sharing, it's extremely important the provision of an evidence base for public health decision making and policy within the Caribbean. It's important that we get accurate, reliable, timely, and relevant public health information to ensure that the decisions are made are based using evidence-based data. As islands, we all collect data within our countries, and CAFA has been integral in terms of us sharing that data, the analysis of that data, and that is being shared to us in a way that we can use it effectively to facilitate data sharing. So one of the areas that we are going to see, and the importance of that regional coordination, is us using this data and ensuring that we get it analyzed in a very timely manner.
The health delegation from St. Lucia participated fully during the 3 days of consultation. Dr. Dana Gomez presented during the meeting on climate change surveillance and early warning systems. Dr. Wayne Felicia presented on biosafety and biosecurity, and Dr. Sharon Belmar George chaired the conference on the third day on regional coordination and data sharing. From the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs, I am Onika McCoy.
We now bring you these international reports.
Blankets contain body parts of civilians. The Israeli army perpetrated a massacre, killing dozens of civilians who were sheltering inside the Tabarin school building. Victims were torn to pieces, and medical teams collected the body parts that were scattered all over. As we speak now, paramedics and civil defense teams are still searching for missing people. The school building is strewn with body parts, and paramedics say that they haven't been able to find a dead body that is still whole. It is estimated that roughly 100 Palestinian civilians were killed and dozens more injured. This is nothing but a massacre. The body parts collected in these blankets belong to a few of the dozens of dead bodies ripped to pieces and scattered all over. Each blanket contains the body parts of more than one person. The scenes that we are seeing are horrific. This is a catastrophic situation. As we speak, civilian survivors and medics are still collecting body parts. As you can see, many are collecting the body parts of their own relatives and siblings. By all measures, this is a massacre, reminiscent of the one at the Baptist Hospital in October. We are witnessing heart-wrenching, painful scenes that are beyond any description. This child has lost all of his family members in the Israeli airstrike on the school building. As you can see, this is the gateway to the school's prayer area. This is the mosque that was targeted and hit by the Israeli missiles. It's located inside the school building. As displaced civilians prayed, the Israeli warplanes targeted the building. Even hours after the attack, medics and displaced civilians are still collecting the bodies and the body parts of the victims.
In Russia, and Moscow is introducing strict new security measures in 3 regions bordering Ukraine in response to this week's surprise incursion by Ukrainian forces into the Kursk region. Now, there are also concerns from the UN Nuclear Agency, which has urged both sides to exercise maximum restraint as fighting moves closer to a nuclear power plant. Well, fighting's been raging since Ukraine's army launched its surprise incursion this week, with reports suggesting that they could be operating up to 30 kilometers inside Russia, with intense fighting close to the town of Suja. Francis Reed reports.
Filmed from a dashboard, then uploaded onto social media. Abandoned and burned Russian troop carriers in the Kursk region. The person who posted these pictures has since been arrested, but the BBC has verified the footage. Ukrainian assaults on Russia started on Tuesday and seem to have come as a surprise. Several villages have been seized. Footage from the Ukrainian military is purported to show Russian soldiers surrendering. Reports suggest the focus is happening just north of Ukraine, with fighting thought to be concentrated near the town of Suja. Moscow says up to 1,000 Ukrainian troops are involved in a region which contains a nuclear plant. The UN Nuclear Agency has urged restraint, but the astonishing images of Russian jets bombing Russian territory seem to run counter to the Kremlin's official narrative that the war in Ukraine has been going to plan. President Putin holding a meeting with his Security Council. It's calling the Ukrainian incursion terrorism. and Russia is now bringing in reinforcements. But no act goes unpunished. A Russian missile attack on a supermarket in the eastern Donetsk region has proved fatal, although it's not clear whether it was a direct response to Ukraine's cross-border assault. Anya was there. We started climbing out of the window, she says. We were barely outside when everything started burning. I started running one way, my colleague ran the other way. Ukrainian emergency services have been searching through the rubble for signs of life. No respite for those living this reality. Francis Reid, BBC News.
And we can speak now to our Kyiv correspondent, James Waterhouse. James, good to have you with us. Are we any clearer as to understanding what Ukraine's aim here is in this surprise incursion?
I think if you look at the pictures, I think that reflects what Ukraine was after in the short term at least. Russia is putting more and more resources into trying to contain this offensive. We've seen a lot of men and machinery moved in the direction of Kursk and neighbouring regions along the border as Ukrainian forces seemingly take more and more territory. And they've even been frustrated in that endeavour, with one convoy certainly being destroyed. And now we have what's being described as a counter-terror operation, a counter-terrorism operation by the Kremlin, which gives powers for cars to be searched, for phone tapping, for vehicles, the movement of vehicles and people to be extremely limited. This is something Russia is having to take seriously. And I think for Ukraine, the hope is that it will relieve pressure on the front lines on its own territory, where it is Russia continuing to advance. It's important not to understate how significant this week has been, because this has been a war, certainly for Ukraine, of grueling familiarity. And here we've had this sort of strange inversion where you have the sight of Russian civilians reacting with fear and anger in some cases and leaving their homes. This is something that we see across Ukraine continually. And it really has sort of shaken things up in that respect. Ukraine has increased the stakes, and in this war of territory, where Russia often talks about wanting Ukraine to concede land in exchange for peace. Well, now Ukraine controls a chunk of Russian territory. It really is a high stakes move, and it could, we are still talking about Ukrainian forces that are overstretched. So it's been an extraordinary few days.
It has indeed. Briefly, if you don't mind, you were just mentioning there how high stakes all of this is. Do we have any kind of intelligence as to understanding whether Ukraine can continue this incursion in Russia whilst also trying to hold the front lines in its own country?
We don't. I mean, at the moment, the colonels and generals and senior officers are being incredibly tight-lipped about this operation. But what we understand, what we can glean from the front lines, is that the issue of military aid, after political disagreements among the West, that's partially been resolved. Equipment is arriving on the front line, but Ukraine is grappling with its own domestic challenge of mobilizing enough men. So, it was seen as counterintuitive at best to send clearly elite fighters into Russia in this way. But if it forces some kind of concession politically or in a military sense by Moscow, then it will be seen as worth it.
A plane carrying 61 people crashed near Sao Paulo in Brazil on Friday, and there were no survivors. Video from local media shows the wreckage among houses in a residential neighborhood. An eyewitness, Pietro, described what he saw.
What I saw was the wreckage of the plane. All that was left was the cabin. I even saw the videos they sent me of the body burning there. I also saw a lot of people broke into the condominium to make videos.
Brazilian carrier Vopas, which operated the plane, said there were 57 passengers in total and 4 crew members on board. A local news outlet interviewed 2 men who said they missed their flight. Flight tracking software showed the plane's path. It took off from Cascavel in the state of Paraná and was bound for Sao Paulo's international airport. It entered an unusual final circling motion before hitting the ground in the town of Vinhedo, some 50 miles northwest of Sao Paulo. A Brazilian aviation engineer told Reuters that a buildup of ice could have caused the plane to stall and spiral in the way it did, but investigators say it's too early to determine the cause of the crash. The airline says the plane underwent inspection a day before the crash, and its de-icing system, along with all other systems, had been deemed operational before takeoff. Brazil's Aviation Accident Investigation Center said they've recovered the plane's so-called black box, containing voice recordings and flight data. The incident is Brazil's deadliest since 2007, when a plane crash killed 199 people.
Shopping and prepping for a busy Friday. My Lahore restaurant is a Manchester staple, a business established in 2002 and loved by locals.
You know, we get people from different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds coming in, whether they're white, black, Asian, you name it. And that's one thing that we've always been about, is bringing people together through food and through hospitality. And that's probably our unique strength, I would say, in our business.
This restaurant, he says, represents the diversity of Manchester, residents from 189 countries and where at least 90 languages are spoken. The latest YouGov survey shows that immigration is a top priority to the country, with 51% of people picking it. But independent analysis of the public finances finds the higher the migration, the more beneficial to the public purse. That's because most new migrants coming in are of working age. It finds their contributions will reduce pressure on government debt over 50 years.
And then if you look at every research, what it shows you, the immigrants give more than what they take out. So they're a positive force. Well, look, you're looking at one here. I've served this country at almost every level. I've been a labourer, I've been a bus driver, I've been a police officer, I've been a Lord Mayor of this beautiful city.
We visited the home of former boxing world champion Amir Khan's father, who moved to Bolton in 1970 from Pakistan. He says diversity is an important part of being British, a narrative that he says was distorted by far-right groups who rioted here and across the country.
And what's happening all over England, in fact, you know. But a lot of people that are from outside of our local, they're not locals, I don't think. And we as community, we all get on. I don't think the genuine Boltonians here are involved in this sort of riots. I really don't think so.
He says his son is a British-born national sporting hero. And many thousands who turned out on the streets to counter the far right on Wednesday agree that it's diversity that makes the country thrive. Laura Khan, Al Jazeera, Manchester.
U.S. stocks finished higher Friday, led by gains in the technology sector after a turbulent week for markets. The Dow inched up marginally, while the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq climbed about 0.5% each. For the week, the S&P finished near break-even, clawing back from Monday's steep dive that was prompted in part by fears of a recession. GDS Wealth Management Chief Investment Officer Glenn Smith says he expects more volatility, which is typical for markets.
Historically, you get a drop of a 5% in the S&P. Last 4 decades, 100% of the time, the S&P has dropped 5% or more, at least once a year. And about every 14 months, the S&P drops about 10% or greater. I think the fact that the market's rebounding is just a testament to how strong the economy is right now. And the fact that the sentiment is that the Fed will cut rates in September.
On Thursday, Fed policymakers expressed confidence that inflation was cooling enough to allow interest rate cuts ahead, and will take their cues on the size and timing of those cuts from the economic data. Stocks on the move Friday included Expedia, which jumped 10% after the online travel agency beat analysts' expectations for second quarter profit. And Elf Beauty plunged 14% after it forecast annual sales and profit below estimates.
You were listening to the Midday News on WINNFM 98.9. The headlines?
Drew San Henry charged with attempted murder. Police request public assistance in locating Kyron Phillip. UNESCO supports St. Kitts and Nevis in advancing sustainable development goals. Public assistance requested in murder investigation. Guyana's government and opposition clash over additional $4 billion Guyana dollars for Guyana Sugar Corporation. Ministry of Health unveils pandemic management advancements in St. Lucia after stakeholder consultation. Internationally, Israeli airstrike on school. Over 100 Palestinians killed during morning prayers.
Thank you for listening.
That was the WINNFM Headline News. The Headline News was brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, and Cariboury.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
With over a century of perfection behind the Mackeson name, a smooth blend with perfect balance and richness, it's no wonder Mackeson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoyed the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Mackeson. All hail the king. Please drink responsibly.
When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and of course your insurance provider, only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Dalil Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
People make the world go round.
And we are back here on Inside the News. Yes, for the first half of the program, we spoke about crime and violence, and we have the 3 top leaders of the People's Action Movement with us, and they gave their insights in terms of crime and violence. But as you know, we were out of time for the news, so we still have them here for another 10 minutes or so. You know, I wanted them to give a good wrap in terms of the whole crime and violence situation that we have. But I want to quickly ask you guys before you begin this whole discussion, and before you guys begin to wrap. Okay, before we do that, I want to take one phone call so you guys can hear from the callers before we go. Caller, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you and your panelists. The concern of many people is that we have heard so much of this before. You know, everyone says crime is not a political issue, and then they launch into a tirade of politics. The current government basically starts to blame its predecessor and make comparisons as if it's in perpetual campaign mode. I don't see, even if our current murder rate was halved, I don't think we can look at that as any success because the underlying problem has not been solved. And in fact, if we look at the current trajectory, it's more of a crisis than anything else. And I don't think the government views it. It doesn't view the situation as such, unfortunately. The current opposition, they pretty much do the same thing, you know. They are defensive about what they did. They make comparisons as if what they did was so successful. If it was so successful, we would not be here, right? And no amount of saying that the peace initiative was not perfect could justify the foolishness that happened under that program, right? So both government and opposition are playing politics with this issue, and so the vicious cycle continues, right? The citizens long for a different approach, not just another symposium, not just another call for an all-of-society approach, which is usually disingenuous, because they don't really believe in it, and no, not another gun amnesty or draconian legislation, because those things seem to be ignored or just not enforced. But something different.
Oh, okay.
Right? We continue to hear buzzwords.
Okay, Carl, I want to ask you quickly. You said, you don't want all these measures to be called up for. But what specifically would you want to see as I throw it over to... Hold on, just before I throw it over to... What specifically you want to see be implemented to deal with the problem?
Okay, I'll tell you. We've been hearing buzzwords like crime as a public health issue and a Department of Citizenry Security. Well, I just read a submission by Dwyer Astafan dated 2008, which had those same things in it: public health issue, citizen security, those kinds of things. In other words, we don't need more of the same talk. What we don't need the multiple advisors and consultancies. We have things there, we have strategies there that need to be dusted off and implemented. That's the thing, okay? You need implementation, right? Take, for instance, I heard on the news about a reward. So what? Who's going to risk giving information for $10,000? They might for $100,000, but they don't hear them publishing what the reward is. Okay? We have millions in the NSA budget, in the national security budget. You don't think that a couple million spent on getting valuable information would be money well spent? So that's one thing we can do. Up the reward. And this does not have to come from the public either. When we talk about all society approach, the private sector has large coffers. They can contribute to such a fund. And the parties themselves, instead of wasting money treating people and bribing people around elections and having expensive campaigns, they can contribute to something like that. So that's one of the things. The other thing would be we normally say that the capital punishment does not deter crime. Well, I'd like to put that to the test for just 1 year, right? Just say anybody caught committing a murder faces automatic implementation of the what is currently on the books, the capital offense, the capital punishment. Okay, just for a year, because I know a lot of people don't believe in it, and internationally, more people probably don't believe in it than who do. But some countries do have it, and I'm saying that we are at the point where we have to look at something different, and that is, yes, we have to look at both short and long term. But in the short term, we need to stem this, and that is one way we can go about doing it. I mean, if we continue to do the same things over and over again, how are we going to get different results? In fact, that's the definition of insanity. Some say stupidity. We have to do something different. That's what I'm saying. And so I expect from your panelists what different things would be done, right? Not the same old, same old.
All right,
So
all right.
That doesn't seem to be getting us anywhere.
All right, thanks, caller.
Okay, then.
Yes, I'll let the panelists respond.
Well, Mr. McMahon has said a mouthful. I want to say that as it relates to peace, I don't think for us, on our standpoint, we were saying we acknowledge the peace program as a program that yielded some result. We acknowledge that it wasn't a foolproof program. We acknowledge that there was some shortcoming. We acknowledge that there was some, at the end of it, political aspects that should not have been there. But we indicated that as far as we know, the peace program still continues. It's been changed to elevate. The monies are still being paid. What we have said is that those persons who are instrumental in keeping the persons involved in keeping persons who are part of the peace, so to speak, in terms of consultation, in terms of conflict resolution, those persons who acted as pillows to ensure that there was some smooth running of it as much as possible were instantly removed without consultation. And so what we are saying, what we are proposing, and our political leader, Natasha Gray, has indicated and said so much this morning in terms of looking at the root, having consultation, taking an approach that is people-centered and people-focused. Again, it is our belief that governments have the resources, in the sense that more resources than any other single individual or entity within the country. And so it is our belief as well that if leaders have been elected, that they should lead. And we as the persons within the community should lend our support towards that. Again, the People's Action Movement has extended an invitation to be a part of the solution. In terms, we wrote to the Prime Minister in January of this year asking for a seat at the table whereby we could discuss what measures are being implemented, look at ways in which these measures could be more efficient from a political standpoint, from our party standpoint. We are told about crime symposium, an open invitation for persons to come, and we've said that just seems like political talk. When you go to symposiums like these, it's a room full of individuals. You have little or no time to properly discuss. We have proposed a more hands-on approach, a more focus group approach. We have written, and when we wrote, it was basically the response by the Permanent Secretary was never before has an opposition party ever wrote to a government asking to sit down in this manner. That we thought was not in the best taste. And so we continue to advocate and become the voice of those persons. We believe that, persons matter most, and that's why we take the opportunity here. You talk about campaign funds and campaign financing. We are not in campaign mode. I don't know about any campaign funds that we have. We have what we have is our heart. What we have is our desire to serve, and that is what we keep pushing forward. If you look at the People's Action Movement now, you see there are new faces, persons who are part of the party and persons who ran. Of course, there's a changing of the guard. We have a new leader as well. And so the party is restructuring, the party is building, and the party is coming back stronger than before. I'll allow our political leader to give her voice.
Now, I understand what the caller spoke about in terms of things being said and nothing more or less being of the same. Now, maybe I need to make it a bit more clearer, because I don't know, apart from our previous leader asking, I've asked someone on one occasion, the next step is to take it to the streets, because I am championing on behalf of the party a cause of concern for the people. And if it is I don't want no personal meeting for any favors for me or any favors for the party. I am championing a cause on behalf of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I'm going to make that clarion call once more to meet and share the ideas to ensure that the administration is consulting with the people and civil society. And if those calls go on deaf ears, the next step is to the streets. And so it's not about Natasha Gray, the leader of PAM, doing the same old thing. This is about ensuring the safety and security of our nation. Crime is a serious, serious problem right now. It is out of control. And as you rightly said, 2 years now, we are here on a second year anniversary. The administration has not done enough. The country is in an uproar. The country is on fire. And our leader is away. And it is time to get things under control. And if he has no intention of getting things under control, then step aside. Step aside and move out of the way so that persons who want to put the safety and security of the people of this nation at the forefront, let them carry the charge.
I just would want to respond as well to my good friend, the gentleman.
Okay, Mr. Pell, while you're responding, we kind of out of time for this because my second guests are here already. So I'll give you a chance to respond, and in responding as well, if you can wrap, and then we go to Azard, and then we'll end with the political leader. Okay. Go ahead.
According to our manifesto, the last election, one of the highlights is about caring for people. I think Azard would have been pushing that point for the whole time about caring. And the People's Action Movement cares. I would like to mention again under Dr. Kennedy Simmons, that 15-year period, you could see they were doing something why crime was not as high as it is today. From 95, I don't want to put anything into, but this is where we are today. Crime and Times Caribbean, they had a 2-decade span. And from 2003, that's where they take it from, where the murder rate you see will reach, and up to today. Yes, I know the caller mentioned about the previous government. But remember, the People's Action Movement was in a group, was CCM, PLP, and the People's Action Movement. And the government before that was the Labour Party. So to kind of put the People's Action Movement in the same grouping as all government are the same, we have an issue because you could say for 27 years, the People's Action Movement was not leading because even though we had in a collision, you realize we had a group of persons. Therefore, if anybody when it comes to a group, you have to have certain consensus in certain things. And that is where a disagreement came in. So therefore, I just want to put that out there. The person could understand, under the People's Action Movement, when it comes to crime, we have crime well controlled. And we have the economic development going good for the country. I will just want to mention something as in closing. It's in relation to policing. So the persons could understand that what I'm saying is not just of my own doing, and it is trying to establish all over the world. So Robert Peel, I don't know if everybody heard about him. And Commissioner William Batten, 2014, mentioned there are 9 principles. These used to happen then, and they could happen now because they're still there in policing. One, the basic principle, policing exists to prevent crime and disorder. So we should understand that and let the police prevent crime. 2, the ability of the police to perform their duties is dependent upon public approval of police action. If we look around what is happening now, almost everybody believes the police should not. But the laws are there saying you should. Because remember, some persons do not have an issue with wrong until it reaches their doorstep. And the police is trying to prevent that. So that is why, for me, I'm saying the public or the community has a responsibility here. Even they don't want to hear about Jesus Christ. But when things happen, let's go to church. And this is why I'm saying it's a holistic approach. Okay? The principle number 3, police must secure the willing cooperation of the public in voluntary observance of the law to be able to secure and maintain the respect of public. And sometimes the police try to do that because the Constitution says no one have the right to trample on someone else's right. But in our society, some person believes somebody should commit, let's say, steal something from someone because they have a right, they feel hungry. But what about my right to have my own property? And this is what I'm saying, it's a societal problem. We have to recognize these things. Also, they believe the police shouldn't enforce the law on the water bottle because the water bottle commit a crime, because the water bottle was hungry, or some do not have a job. But when it happened to them, they want the police to come right away. These are the things I'm talking about. Number 4, the degree of cooperation of the public that can be secured diminishes proportionately to the necessity of the use of physical force. What this is simply saying, whatever force the police use, it is within the law to say they have this, starting from just talking to somebody to when it escalates, when some persons want to shoot at police, shoot at someone, then the police can do that in the defense or the protection of life and the property, even their own life. And some people forget that. The police have his or her life to protect as well. But some persons believe under no circumstance the police should use no force. But how the police will protect you if your life is at danger, your property? The police have family to have to go home to. Number 5, police seek and preserve public favor not by catering to the public opinion, but by constantly demonstrating absolute impartial service to the law. The police have been trying to do that. Sometimes, unfortunately, other persons get inside and try to disrupt that. And therefore, we have to let the police do what they have to do. And this is the view of the People's Action Movement. You could go back in 1980 when Dr. Simmons and were there. The police were doing their job without interruption. Number 6, the police use physical force to the extent necessary to secure observance of the law or to restore order only when the exercise of persuasion, advice, and warning is found to be insufficient. How many times the police are asking persons and recommending certain things? Put your gun down. They even went to the government to get certain things, okay? But it's not been done. So I just want to say it was 9 principles are going to finish right there. They have 3 more, but they're going to leave it there to let persons understand. We have the laws on the book, and the People's Action Movement is saying we are caring for our people, our nation, to make it prosperous again and help in reducing crime. And all I want to say, God bless St. Kitts and Nevis. Peace be to us. God bless constituency number 7, and peace be to it.
Okay, so I'll do my little wrap. I want to say that the electorate is looking for a government that cares for them and their safety. The electorate is looking for a government that cares enough to look at the concerns that they have and to address them. When we look at crime, there are a number of issues that we have to look at. We have to look at border security. We have to look air and support. We have to look at better wages as a way to have persons earning enough so they are less persons likely to create crime. We have to look at sports as a way to deviate from criminal behavior. We have to activate the police and the defense force. We also have to invite actors, whether it is regionally, locally, or internationally, with experience to give us suggestions and recommendations. We have to establish a crime-fighting body, and I think we have to look at education as a way of curbing criminal activities. These are sharp points. I allow now the political leader to give the final say.
Once again, the People's Action Movement just want the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis to know that we want to desperately get to the root cause of what is happening here in our country. And so we will do our endeavor best to meet with the powers that be. Failure to do so, we will demonstrate on your behalf because your safety is important. We will continue to put things in place so that we look at the cultural behaviors, we look at what is happening, we will agitate for our borders to be more secured. The government needs to look at why this last gun amnesty has failed. It only yielded one result. Look at it, compare it to previous gun amnesties and see where they have failed and what they need to do to improve on it. We need to make sure that our people can find employment, and those that have employment, they have a livable wage, something that is comfortable enough so that they can save and don't have to be dependent on the social safety net programs that government has in place. And so we need to put things in place to empower our people. We also need to make sure that there's a high level of trust between the public and the police. so that we can get to the root cause of what is happening right here. We can get persons to feel comfortable in giving information to the police. We need to make sure that the measures that are in place right now, that they are not just measures for having them sake. If you put up a camera, it must be one that is working, one that is maintained, and one that you are actively reviewing and taking information from, so that persons see that there is some level of seriousness in our society. And putting more laws, as Lincoln said, is not something that will solve crime. We need persons to enforce these legislations. We need to find out what is the problem. We need to have discussions with the business community. Why is it there are so many robberies? We need to find out why the communities are so unsafe. We need to find solutions to secure our business spaces, to protect our people, so that St. Kitts and Nevis can be the federation where peace can abound.
Well, thank you there. That you heard it there. That was the People's Action Movement. We heard from Mr. Pell, Mr. Gomes, and Mrs. Graybrooks. I got it correct, right? Well, there you had it. That was our discussion on crime and violence here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Just for the listeners out there, it's something that we will be engaging all the political actors on here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We start with the People's Action Movement this morning. You know, they share their thoughts and their perspectives on the issue. Yes, and you can expect more of this discussion as we seek to deal with the crime and violence problem we're facing here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Well, there you had it. That was the People's Action Movement. My second guest, they're here right now, and we'll take a quick break, acknowledge our partners, and when we come back, we will continue with more Inside the News.
People make the world go
Shopping with TDC just got much easier. Here's how. Log on to shoptdcgroup.com. Shop at your convenience at any time, from anywhere, with your smartphone, tablet, or computer. With our safe and secure payment checkout, you choose the option to pick up in-store or have your goods delivered right to your door. It's that easy. Shop tdcgroup.com, your one-stop online store.
Shop anywhere, shop anytime, same quality you love. Now online. Shop
www.shoptdcgroup.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go.
Well, yes, there you had it. We were joined by the People's Action Movement for the first half of the program, where we have the Domino Association, and they are going to share their perspective on what's been going on there, and we'll get a little bit how sports can deal with the fight against crime and violence. We go to this caller. Caller, good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Abel, and all your guests there. Wonderful guests.
Well, I can say they left, so, but go ahead.
Oh, they gone?
Yes, they only came on for the first half of the program, but I kept them a little for the second half.
Okay, I agree. I agreed with everything every one of them said on the first program. Now, our borders here in St. Kitts and Nevis, they are wide open like a football field. And if you do not have observing those borders 24/7, when one crew and the Coast Guard is off duty, the other crew supposed to take up. Because the perpetrators, they are ahead of the law enforcers. They look for them when they are not out on the seas doing their work, and that's the time they make the move. Remember in the Bible said, while men slept, their enemies came and took their land. So our borders, we have sleepers around it. And when anything imported in the country, whether it's in a container or a nail, everything should be thoroughly checked. Don't watch no face and say, well, oh, this person is a minister of that, a teacher of this, or what of that. So you go ahead, man. You are no.
But Carlo,
just man up and all that do it good.
But Carlo, to be fair, like I said earlier in the first half, they've been doing that when it comes to screening at the airports, because even me,
they've been doing that.
I can tell you, I got searched, and a thorough search when I came in recently. So I can tell you, I can attest to that perspective, that even I got to the search.
Well, who tell you that 3 persons after you got searched like you? Okay, let me say this here. It is being seen on Facebook that there was a big, long snake up by the fence of the Nemo's fence 2 years ago. How that get in here? In somebody's belly? You don't. No. When it comes to security and safety, check every man. Every man. There are a lot of things done wrong, unknown, and some of them are known. Don't give nobody no chance to say, well, he's this or miss this, and they're going to let him come in. No. That's where problem going to start. And the next thing again, there is no deterrent. Now, Mr. Abel, if you're laying on your bed sleeping, and a son up bite you, even if he ain't bite you, he run from you and see it, and he run, you're going to go kill it, you know. You ain't want to come back and bite you. So when people murder people, like look at that little young 9 years old child, everybody innocent of getting murdered. But when somebody going to take a gun and put it to a young child, innocent child head like that, what does that tell them? Well, I could kill thee and get away. Get away. And if they catch me, they're going to put me in there and I'm going to get 3 square meal and I'm going to be all right. You got to put up some deterrent to deter others who want to do it. If they want to do it, they will think twice. But you know the overall thing of it? People could talk to people and tell them, listen, the road you are going down, it is wrong, it is destructive. There is a better road, it is positive and constructive. Choose the one constructive. Because Jesus Christ could change people's heart. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Carlo. Carlo sharing his thoughts on the topic of crime and violence. I'm joined by my 2 guests now, so I'll do some technical setup first before we think. So we'll take a quick break and then we'll come right back.
Chip, we wanna get chip. Give your little smarty the perfect smart start for their future with CHIP, the child investment plan from TDC Financial Services. Invest in your child's next step, and we know what's next is always changing. Chip, we wanna get chip. CHIP is a long-term plan with no minimum deposit, no monthly commitment, and you're guaranteed a special high interest rate per annum. I want chip too. Visit TDC Financial Services today and get CHIP, the child investment plan, providing the best head start for every child. Chip, we wanna get chip.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go round.
And we are back here on Inside the News. As I promised, we do have with us representatives from the Domino Association here on Inside the News. We're going to take it down a notch. We're not going to talk any more crime. We're going to be a little bit smiling a little. We're going to breathe a little easier for for the remainder of the program. So I'll throw it over to them and let them introduce themselves, and we will start the discussions from there.
My name is Romeo Paris, and I am the president of the St. Kitts Nevis National Domino Association, and I have with me on my left the second vice president,
Bernice Morton. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes. So what has been going on in the world of dominoes here in St. Kitts and Nevis? I know I've been reporting a lot on it in the sports, but bring the public up to speed with what has been going on.
Well, right now we are actually in the process of selection of a national team to represent the federation in the World Cup Domino tournament in Antigua in 2025. We are pretty excited. We have to get our players together practicing to be a part of the selection. And we are also very excited because for the first time in 26 years, we will be having a female team, and I'm pretty excited about that. I actually heard one of the guys today telling me that the ladies are actually hard. They didn't know that we were practicing behind the scene.
So what, were they underestimating the ladies' play?
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
We've been there every Wednesday. So since they got beaten that day, they now decide to practice with the ladies on Wednesdays. So there are two practicing sessions, Wednesdays and Sundays, both at the community center. Sundays from 5 p.m. Wednesdays, weekday is 6 p.m.
Okay, let's jump into the meat of the matter here. You guys elected a new association, and one of your main aims is to get St. Kitts and Nevis back on the map in terms of playing dominoes and being remembered. Because I know St. Kitts and Nevis was remembered back in days for being, a
top player, top team,
a top nation. Yeah. How has that been going for you guys locally in terms of getting dominoes? I mean, everybody it is played at every corner technically. How are you guys now getting that, and how have you been seeing the resuscitation of formal dominoes in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Well, it took some time. You have to understand that domino has been played over the last 20-something years, but not in a structured way. People just gathered on the lamppost by shop, social gatherings, and then you have some politicians and some individual would, to bring people together throughout a game and so forth. So the association, under the directive of the Ministry of Sport, we had an interim committee, an interim body, and they gave us the responsibility to structure it, to organize it, and get clubs and teams around the island. And we formed and have calendar events, and then eventually into the election of an executive, which we did January 14th, 2024. And so now we have a full team of executive, 7 executive plus 2 members from the floor representing the clubs at executive meetings. It's a challenge, dealing with people is always a challenge. Some people don't like rules and regulation. And the Domino Association, FSRC compliant, is now responsible for control, management, and directive for domino within the federation.
And when you talk about the federation, just to be clear, you're talking about St. Kitts and
Nevis, that's correct, yeah.
Okay, so what's it been like on Nevis? Because I can only speak very much for St. Kitts because we've been around St. Kitts. We've been seeing everybody knocking a board, playing it at the bars and so forth. What's the response been like from Nevis?
Well, they play domino over there. Sometimes the challenge is coming over, transportation and so forth. But we're working on that. I was there on August, Monday, played some games with them. They were surprised about my skill. And I don't even play as much now. I'm more into administration. And we met, I told them that we'll be back over. So that's the challenge of bringing them. But a lot of the players that are living in St. Kitts are either Nevisian or of Nevisian descent. For example, myself, my mother is Nevisian. I was born in Nevis. And so I am a part of the federal team. But we have to get more cooperation. And like I said, that would take time. We started out this year, to reach out with them. And so hopefully before we can go to Antigua, we'll have 1 or 2 players from on the Nevis end.
Okay, tell us a bit about tournaments and selection for the world team.
Well, that's the first vice president. One of his duty is the tournament committee, and he heads the selection committee. He was scheduled to come in today, but work-related matters, kept him away from this meeting. But we're looking at taking a full team of 40 players. And we have about maybe 50 to 60 prospective players. So then we'll have to show up. And there are 10 criteria, including behavior, because you can imagine behavior is important if you're going to wear a national jersey. Commitment to practice session and commitment to fundraising. This 40-player squad could run us up to $250,000 for 10 days. And so we have to have a fundraising drive. We have to have sponsors. We have to have the Ministry of Sport support. We have to have the Ministry of Finance in terms of duty-free and tickets and our jerseys coming from abroad. The jerseys are pretty beautiful and pretty impressive, I must say. Thanks to the second vice, who is responsible for branding and marketing, for doing a great job. And so now I feel comfortable as the president that we can attract a sponsor, let's say Nagico or First Federal, who has always sponsored us, or Development Bank, or even Central Bank or National Bank. And I think they too will feel pleased and proud to attach their logo and such a quality national jersey.
Well, based on how you describe the jerseys, do you guys have them on the market to sale or so?
Not yet. Not yet. We're just wrapping up. And then we're going to have the flag, the St. Kitts flag, of course, as part of the overall design, kaleidoscope colors.
I mean, how you described it there, I was ready to pull out. Yes.
Yeah, well, we will have that. Someone actually suggested that we do that as part of the fundraisers, because some people, they are not really players, but they're supporters, and they might not be on the national team, but they will want to show the support.
I mean, yeah, because what I've recognized is that we here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we're very patriotic, regardless of if it's our club football team or the national team or even the Patriots. We all tend to throw support, and we purchase the memorabilia and the merchandise. Right.
Yeah.
So
we did that when we attended World Cup back in 92 or 98. Somewhere we did it in 94, 98.
98.
Yeah, we had shirts and merchandising, and we had actually companies that sponsored the shirts as well for us. This year we're hoping to have a media house that work with us, maybe to travel to us and cover us and parade on opening day and so forth. What we want to do, basically, me as the president and somebody who has been there before, I came back on board because nothing was taking place in terms of structure, competitive domino, club dominoes and so forth. So with my experience, I came back on, and then I had guys like Rankin and Krimai, Agard, Brenda Hazler, secretary, and we had Keatley came on later on, Keatley Blanchett, and Mr. Farrell. And so we with the experience, we work and we got the clubs involved. But it wasn't easy. Right now we have one or two small challenges, nothing too big. I think that once the domino players find the confidence in the executive, they will happily. And we're getting there.
Yes.
What I want to ask, and I've seen this in the sporting arena as well, women's involvement in sports, and I know you touched a little while ago on the fact that the women are really good, right?
Yeah.
Women involvement in the sport of dominoes. I see a few coming out from the various shops I may pass by, or I might pass by the terminal. What sort of involvement have you guys been seeing with women and girls involved in the sport of domino?
Yeah. Well, we're really coming out and giving our best shot because, we have been stigmatized as not good enough to go with the men. But lately at practice, we have been showing them we are a force to be reckoned with. We're not just as good as them. We may even be better than them because we've proven ourselves time and time again. So with all this said, I am here asking and seeking if any more females out there are very much interested in coming out to even learn domino and even get to play so we can travel together, because we want to leave here to be a force, and we want to come back with not only just saying, yeah, we did well, but the championship at the World Cup. And with all that said, as the branding and marketing personnel, I'm here seeking help from the general public as well as the business enterprises to when we send out the letters to them that they may come on board and give their real support. Financially, whatever, shirt-wise, whatever they want to give. We greatly appreciate it because at this moment we are a non-profit organization and we really and earnestly seeking their help to get us on board, rearing and ready to go.
And as president, the ladies could tell you that one person who have been really pushing them, supporting them, fussing with them, is me as president to get them on board. Not only it's important to have the female team because it makes us look inclusive, but we cannot win overall championship
without us,
without a female team. We can win individual prizes, king or peers and this other stuff, but to be an island champion, you must have a woman team. And so for the first time, we're looking at taking 12 females with us to give us some women power. And they have been showing more interest in terms of steady practicing than the males.
That's correct.
And so we want to let the males know that they will not be they can be substituted for females if they're not meeting up with the criteria,
And to come up and practice, they need to come out in their numbers.
Yeah, but we're getting there. And as you know, historically, domino has gone from just a sport
to structured
while in our time as cane cutters or at night you play at the lamp posts and so forth. It has gone to an intellectual sport, offensive, defensive ways of playing. Correct. People from the banks and professionals are now playing it. And so we now have to find a balance between the two types of mentalities and the two types of behaviors, between the non-professional and the professional. Because domino is a very passionate game, I could tell you. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it can evoke some quarrel and vexation. But at the end of it, it is love. It's a labor of love.
I will put my head on a block to say this. Domino in the Caribbean is more popular than cricket. I'll put my head on a block to say that. The reason why I'm saying that
just that it's not a spectator sport like cricket.
Exactly. Because it's technically played at every corner. Mm-hmm. People are very much interested and passionate about it, as you alluded to. Mm-hmm. And people are also finding it as a way. You have a family gathering and you bring a case of dominoes, people will engage, people will play.
And it will be a fun event.
Exactly.
Guaranteed to be a fun event.
Guaranteed.
How are you guys using this, and when I mean you guys, the association, using this to make it a social driver for engagement in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Well, that is what it's all about. And we are looking at different ways to get into certain societies and certain areas. We had a call from the Cardin Home because they want to put in a team. We got interest from the college, the young players. And as you know, domino can help you in maths, in psychology,
that's right.
in critical thinking,
focus,
in probability as well. You see, and you can develop an offensive or defensive tactic. So there is the psychology and the mental aspect to it. We intend to, with the support of the second vice president, get Domino in school. This has been one of the plans since when we started in 2018, 2019, whether we can get it in primary or in wherever, to get people sensitized to this sport, because you can learn counting and mathematics
through Domino.
And that is true. Domino has become a game of strategy, and as you rightly put it, you have to begin to think about your next move, 2 moves down, 3 moves down, in terms of who's going to play this, right, and all of that.
And it calls on your memory as well.
Yes, because you have to.
And the order in which the game is played, because it's four persons in the order.
You have to remember
in the competition coming up, there's going to be 4-hand and 3-hand, where you just got to defend yourself.
I want to ask this because I realize that there's a stigma attached to Domino as well, because at this point in time, and let's be frank, people are seeing Domino as being that sport or that game that is primarily played on the street corner. So there's some level of stigma attached to it. Can you address that?
Okay, this stigma needs to go. So, for example, in Barbados has 1,400 registered players. Lots of teams, but 1,400 registered players. As a matter of fact, we have a club of 35 that is coming in February to give us an invitational match in terms of preparation towards the World Cup. And we are also looking at bringing an export domino player from Guyana to assist my team in preparing. I mean, anybody who know me in domino administration know that I take the game very serious, having been playing it since 12 years old. So we have a lot of work to do. We have to remove that stigma. In Barbados, it is very, very commercial. The sport is very commercial. You can make lots of money in this sport as well. And so we need to get to that point. And we have the support. It's the Ministry of Sport back in 2019 gave us a letter, in giving us the authority to do this.
Yes.
Okay. As you mentioned that, how do we incentivize, how do we get more support to be thrown behind, and this is not just limited to dominoes, how do we get more support being thrown behind sports in general, and more specifically your sport of domino?
Well, governments and people responsible must see the overall benefit of sports to the development of children, prevention of crime, and the sort of stuff, rather than just see it as something to while away time. So they will have to make contribution. Sport is a big deterrent. If you can get the youth involved in sports and domino and so forth, and off the street corners, because what I notice is that people have a lot of time on their hands, and they will find work
for idle hands.
And so if we can engage them, what I find, I was the president of Domino Association since 1992, and then 98, after the business started expanding, I resigned. I was president for 4-H as well. I was president for Shadwell Dominoes, and we became a very rich club, profitable club. I'm also president of the Draft Association. I've sponsored footballers, Canary, Cactus, and St. Peter's Spice Pharmacy football team. So I personally see an importance of sports to the development of the young, and not just as entertainment. Most people are distracted with the entertainment side of it, they just fun side, having music and drinking your beers and alcohol and eating your food. But there is the psychological aspect and psychological benefit to sport. And I think any government who is planning on curbing crime, not only should they look at sports and invest more in sports and the infrastructure within the communities, but they must also look at ways to provide financial institution to these vulnerable communities.
Correct.
Rather than just, talking with respect to crime. In terms of crime, I would like to see a constituency building, one per constituency, and government working in these constituency building on behalf of the people. Because as it is right now and 40 years back, if I have a personal issue and I need to see my minister, that's impossible.
And with a room to play domino in it.
What we're doing now, I have made a push to the Ministry of Land. They said that we can either get a building that we can renovate from government for a home for Domino, or we can get a piece of land free that we can build our building, because the life of a domino player goes for many, many years. From the national level, we are also looking at we also have a Veterans Affairs Committee, so that we can look into the older players, see how we can help them as an organization, how we can reward them for what they have contributed to the sport now that they are, older. We also want to look at ways in which the Domino Association can sponsor. Like, for example, I saw youth in McKnight, who I understand is very fast and could meet the Carifta game, but he's 11, 12, but he doesn't have the support. And the idea came to me that, hey, maybe the Domino Association can adapt this guy, even though he's in athletics and football, and sponsor him his shoes and sponsor him. That's all the stuff.
I want to ask you guys a couple of questions before I let you go, because we're kind of out of time. One, and you're speaking to this issue specifically, but I'll ask the question anyway. From a broader perspective, how do you see, or what more do you guys want to see be done from a national perspective? And national perspective does not only mean government, because we have this tendency of saying that it's a government's responsibility, it's a government responsibility. The government is the people, right? We elect the representatives, right? So at the same time as we elect them, we hold them responsible. But from a national perspective, and I'm talking about sports here, what specifically or what additionally can be done to address, quote unquote, and I'm hearing this, the gaps in sports? Because we had Troy Nisbet, who is a national swimmer and an Olympian now. We have footballers, you mentioned the youngster there who is running, but he does not have the support. What more do you think we can do to assist in developing and lifting the standard of sports in St. Kitts and Nevis? Because, and touching on this point as well, you guys are here, and then you referenced earlier the support that is needed for the association.
You see, being a sports fanatic myself, if like I was an athlete and I used to compete, but I'm not getting the help and the support from outside, it tends to make me feel bad and I pull away from the sport. When in fact we have so many talent here, raw talent in St. Kitts, and we're not being used or seen, all because we the people, not coming together as a collective body to help everyone. So if we as a people in St. Kitts come and help, then the Choi, the Tianjo, everybody who was athlete could come back together and help us. So if we form a government, to say a track and field government, a sporting government, and we have all the past Olympians come together and decide, hey, we're going to support the Olympians going forward. Just as so the Domino decide they're going to support Domino going forward. You have the cricket, you have the netball. So if everybody come together collectively, then we in turn would save and help the others going forward. But instead of that, we're waiting for the last moment when the team's supposed to travel to walk up and down St. Kitts with sponsorship, and then we ask you may get help or get no help at all. But here I'm saying and asking and pleading for the listening audience out there, if you could please come together collectively to help everybody, not just Domino, but every individual out there, because there are so many athletes out there hurting for lack of help. Some of them going hungry, have nothing to eat, and no one to help. If they do help, they may have to give something in return. But all I'm saying out there, and I'm pleading and I'm asking, there's so many athletes out there. They're hurting, they're begging, and they're asking for help. Little vitamins here and there. Mr. Paris Pharmacy have a vitamin place. So maybe he himself will get some and help say, hey, I'm going to donate to Irishtown Primary School some vitamin for the athletes, and then somebody else may fall. It's a ricochet.
Yeah, and I've done that too. But to add to the second vice point, we need to see national engagement where the politicians and the citizenry must see the significance of sports and how we can do, and the marketing value of sports and entertainment to the country. We spend millions promoting St. Kitts in tourism, but you see what Rihanna can do, or a Byron Messiah. The funny thing is, we waited until Byron Messiah was large out there on his own to then give him the key to the city. For me, with a poor song, in terms of lyric, big beat, but the lyrical content in the height of crime, it wasn't. But we used his popularity at that time, because he suited us to say we're promoting. We need to do that for people in entertainment and in other sports, because we have what it takes. And even though they say we're small, but we can do it.
We can
and so
do it.
in our instance with Domino, we want to go out there after 26 years and show that we can win the championship.
With
because
your support.
when I travel on behalf of Domino, they always talk about St. Kitts and their players, how difficult it is. I went to Barbados and meet with the president and their club. And the hardest player in Barbados is telling me who beat him 26 years ago from St. Kitts. Okay, so we have to do our part. And from an association standpoint, I am pushing for my executive to put out their best and to make the players and the Kittitian player and St. Kitts Nevis proud on a whole.
Okay, so we're out of time, but I want to give you guys, that's about 45 seconds or so to give us your final words before we wrap the program.
Just want to give thanks to the Creator, God Almighty, for giving us the opportunity to come here. And here am I still pleading to the general public, with the people, to please come out and support us. See us Wednesdays and Sundays at Newtown Community Center. Come support. Maybe then you will find interest and say, hey, I want to be a part. So see you Wednesday at 6 o'clock and see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
And in closing, I just want to say thanks to the second vice president, the first female holding that position. I'm kind of put her on the hot spot, so this is something new for her. And I think with time that she will come much better. I also want to apologize for the absence of my first vice president, who has been working and giving us some ideas as a marketing person himself as to how we could achieve this Herculean task and reach 2025 World Cup. I'm confident that we will get sponsors, people like Najiko, who has always supported us, Development Bank, First Federal, Best for Less as well, Caribou Breweries, so I'm very optimistic based on the past, what happened in the past and now, okay? And I want to thank you, Mr. Jermaine, for giving us the opportunity and Win FM and giving us the opportunity to put ourselves out there and so that people become more aware of what we are about and what we're doing. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot. There you had it. Those were the representatives from the Domino Association here in the Federation. Yes. We're out of time today, folks. Yes, I know we were kind of curtailed for this section of the program. They were supposed to be on for a little longer, but we were talking crime and violence in the first half of the program, and that spilled into the second half. And then we're hearing from the Domino Association. They're always welcome on Inside the News whenever they're available. But nevertheless, that was the program for today. I'm really out of time, so it was really good being in your company. Like I said earlier, we will be inviting the other political parties on to discuss crime and violence here in the Federation. We really need to get to the root cause of this problem, and we begin the discourse today in terms of tackling crime and violence. I was German Abel in the hot seat today. So it was good being in your company. Until next time, it's goodbye.
for the artists.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.